Hello and welcome to this very sporty episode of Hospitality Talks, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome an old friend of mine, Dom Collingwood, who is the co-founder of MatchPint, and I will pass over to him to introduce himself to you.
Thanks so much, Katie. Delighted to be here. As you say, co-founder of MatchPint, a business that I founded with Leo, my school friend. We've known each other since we were 13. In 2011, to bring people together across the UK initially, but now across the world, to experience sport at its best, which for us means surrounded by friends, with great food and drink in front of you, and that means in great bars, pubs, restaurants across the UK. We now operate in the UK, Ireland, France, Australia, and soon to launch in Italy and Germany. Used by just over 5 million people to find great places near them that are showing the sports matches that they want to watch with their friends.
Fantastic. So, Dom, you're here to talk to us about, we've recently put together a research report between MatchPint and KAM that looks at the opportunity that this crazy summer of sport is offering the industry. And obviously, we've got everything from rugby to the Olympics to football, etc. How important do you think that this summer of sport, as it has been christened by others as well as ourselves, how important do you think that is going to be to the industry as we come out of lockdown and start to re-enter normal life?
It's a great question. And I think that the phrase that you used there, re-enter normal life, is really the core of the answer, which is that we will all, I think any operators watching will have experienced what it has been like to essentially open the floodgates on the 12th of April or hopefully the 17th of May to allow people to come back into our brilliant pubs, bars, restaurants, to experience socializing again. And while we don't underestimate the operational challenge that everyone has faced over the last, well, really year of planning for various types of reopening, actually, we haven't needed to put that much effort as an industry into marketing, into events creation in order to get people back in. They just want to come back and experience the taste of a freshly poured pint, of a beautifully cooked meal, and enjoying the sunshine in our gardens.
And so not having to clear up after yourself as well.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even the delivery companies haven't yet managed to sort out the clear up afterwards. So I think that what we've seen over the last 5 weeks, and we'll continue to see, I think, when pubs reopen indoors, is this kind of rush back into trade. And we don't need to work very hard for that. But once that honeymoon period, so to speak, is over, and people are, I suppose, over the newness of going back to pubs, we then do have to work a little bit harder to encourage people to continue coming back into the trade. And I think there is a reason why for decades now, sport has been a brilliant footfall driver, both on an always-on basis for the general sporting season, Premier League football, international rugby, etc., but also these marquee events that happen every now and then, like the Euros, the Olympics, Lions Tours, and so on. So this summer of sport represents, I think, for our industry, an opportunity to not just ride the wave of reopening, but then continue to ride that wave through the summer. So people are flooding back into our pubs and then continue to flood back into our pubs through the Euros. Hopefully England and the other home nations do well. Into the Lions, we keep people in with the Olympics, and then we're into the routine as we get into the autumn, having really put a lot of the money back into our coffers that obviously we've all lost over the last 12 months.
And it's interesting because we know sport, people have been able to watch sport from home. We know that. And you and I were talking earlier about the idea that lots of people have upgraded their ability to do so within their homes. But what they haven't been able to do, unless they were breaking a lot of laws, is have people around to watch that sport with them. And from the research that we've conducted, the Summer of Sport research, which, by the way, is available to everybody, and there'll be a link at the bottom of this video if you want to download it. But we know that 70% of sports fans that we spoke to told us that they were going to be watching sport with friends, and that's what's been missed, isn't it? And is that part of the importance of the Summer of Sport? It's not just the event itself, it's who I'm experiencing it with and who I get to be in that atmosphere with.
100%, Katie. I think we cannot underestimate the normality that people now are used to in terms of eating takeaways, watching sport at home, etc., sitting on Zoom calls rather than having face-to-face meetings. And whenever we're introduced to a new partner, customer, client, potential employee, we really like to ask them a question, which I think the responses to which help articulate, what it is that we should be doing as an industry this summer and why that social aspect is so important. Because we ask people, what is your favorite or your most prominent sporting memory as a sports fan? And we get all sorts. We've had amazing stories about people being at World Cup finals in Australia in 2003 in Sydney, through to people, throwing, obviously lots of beer went around in 2018 in the World Cup, to this amazing story, one about a father and son who were watching in two different parts of the house when they were both Liverpool fans, when Liverpool came back to win the Champions League final in 2005, and met on the stairs between each other, jumping into each other's arms. And the point here is that, sporting experiences, and indeed any experience, live music would be exactly the same, isn't really an experience if it's not shared with others. We lose the empathy, we lose the element of connection. We don't have the opportunity to literally physically rise up out of our seats to celebrate a goal. And what you said about audiovisual in homes is so, so important, because over the last year, people have become really used to watching sport at home. They've become used to watching it on really good TVs with great sound systems, being able to follow just about everything. And there has never been more sport on television than in the last 15 months, because the Premier League have now had, it's almost every single day there is something on. But so much of that sport has been completely unmemorable. So many people can't tell me what happened in the Champions League final last year. People can't tell me what happened on the last day of the Premier League season because they weren't sharing it with people. And what we do so well in the hospitality sector is create experiences, not just document historical moments.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that as we talk to customers over the next few months, we are really elevating in our marketing messaging the point of, this is a place where you belong, it's a place where you communicate with others, it's a place where you share. And that's what makes sports so exciting, so memorable, and so captivating. It's not sitting by yourself with a takeaway pizza, watching the game on your sofa.
No. And let's talk about what is going to be popular, because the research sort of threw up what people were looking forward to seeing. And it's not just all about football, is it?
It's not at all. And I think this has been a drum that we've been banging for quite a long time. And I'll give you a reason why I think this is a difficult drum to bang. So let's talk about, first of all, what's available this summer. Headline, Euro 2020 in 2021. Slightly strange, but for copyright reasons and all of that.
Copyright, or just because they were cheapskates with having to redo all the point of sale and marketing?
I think there was quite a lot of that. I think, the great big ships that have been pulling all the merchandise in from the Far East have, landed in time for the tournament to take part. So yeah, definitely some cost saving measures there. Yeah. But that is the headline. 6.9 million UK adults will be going into the on-trade to watch Euro 2020, right. Which is a huge number. So that is by far and away the headline. Also, major end of the sports season coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got two English teams in the Champions League final, Chelsea and Man City, and Man United in the Europa League final, who we know are an incredibly popular team. But once that is over, you've got a really exciting British and Irish Lions rugby tour to South Africa. We know from previous research that rugby fans are generally affluent. They're very social. They stick around. They're very loyal to the on-trade. So there's a huge opportunity around 3 big weekends of test match rugby there. And of course, you've got the Olympics, which is a completely different audience and performs, I think, actually a slightly different role in terms of sport in the on-trade. But we talk at MatchPint about having sports fans and sports flirts. It's something that Guinness talk a lot about in terms of rugby fans and flirts. And there is a role for sports fans, and by sports fans, we mean the type of people, I'm sure we all know them, that are glued to their phones or at the pub at 12 o'clock every Saturday to watch Premier League football. But there is also a whole world of sports flirts who probably don't go to the pub very often to watch sport, but they will absolutely get involved in whatever kind of energy is taking over the country over the course of the summer. Yeah. So, we talked earlier, Katy, about the fact that, your favourite sporting memories and experiences are in the pub watching England in major tournaments, whether they're European Championships, World Cup, and so on. So I think one of the things that is really important to say is that, we're not saying in this report that the Lions or the Olympics is going to deliver more sales or more footfall than the Euros. But there's a really important point that I want to make here, which is when we look out into our pubs during Euro 2020 and we see 100 people in there for England versus Scotland, we think to ourselves, that is sport working and driving sales for me. 4 weeks later, during the Olympics, we look out into our pub and we see 5 people watching Great Britain versus Germany in the women's hockey final. We're far too tempted not to see the 5 people, but to see the 95 people that are missing. And we begin to think that that hockey event is not driving sales because our pub is not rammed full of sports fans. And just to call back to some previous research that we did in 2017, where we looked at actual sales figures for sports events, and we found that 43% of wet sales, take all sports event over the course of the year, take place during Premier League football. And that is the main reason why people sign up for Sky, BT. Premier League drives sales. 43% is a really big number. And the next biggest number was something like 15% was the next biggest sport. So 43% is really, really big. However, to any pub or any pub company or any customer or any supplier that supports sport who thinks sport is Premier League football or sport is international football, the point that we make is if you were to buy a keg of beer and you had 88 pints in there and you sold the first 35 and then said, you know what, actually, we're going to throw the keg away now. We're going to throw 53 pints away. We would never, ever do that. And yet so many pubs, bars, restaurants, operators that we speak to spend tens of thousands of pounds on their Sky and BT subscriptions to show Premier League football and then throw everything else away. And it's the equivalent to a group of people that come in and spend 300-400 quid on a bar tab. That is no different to the same 300 or 400 quid being spent by 7, 8, 9 different groups of people. So, there is a huge, huge range of different opportunities available. Yes, the Euros are the big headline, but rugby, Olympics, cricket, all of these things, if any of those events are driving just 2 people into our pub to come enjoy a meal and experience each other's company as they watch some sport, that is money that's going into our till and not going into delivery companies at home.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pretty excited about it myself. I am definitely in sports flirt, not a sports fan, but I'm very much looking forward to the Olympics. I'm very much looking forward to the Euros. I might even dabble in a bit of rugby this year. Dom, we're going to finish up there. Just one last question for you. What do you think pubs and bars need to be doing that they possibly weren't doing prior to the pandemic in order to really make sure that those sports fans and flirts are happy in their venues?
I think separate research that I've been reading recently from KAM, I think, points to the key challenges and therefore the key messages. The consumer journey has changed significantly. I never thought that my mum would use apps to book tables in restaurants. I certainly never thought my mum would be the biggest Facebook user that I know. And yet that is where, my family hang out a lot of the time. And, one of the things that has been great over the last year amongst a whole heap of rubbish has been an acceleration of trends towards digital literacy amongst the whole gamut of the population. So people are now expecting to be able to find your pub online. They're expecting to be able to book your pub online. They're expecting to be able to get to know what they're going to get when they get there, whether that is simply a menu or even better, a package that you can put together to make people feel like, having spent the last 15 months having to think about everything,
Goodness, yeah.
I would now just like
Yeah.
for a brilliant pub nearby to take care of all of that for me. So making sure that you're really visible, that if someone goes on Google and searches, where can I watch Euro 2020 nearby?
Yeah.
Make sure you're there and you're coming up. Make sure that you've got bookings partners and people can book tables, and make sure that when they come, they're reminded of everything that is great about our industry, which is incredible service, brilliant produce, great food and drink, amazing experience, all of the stuff that you can't get at home.
That's absolutely fantastic. I couldn't agree more. Dom Collingwood from MatchPint, thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to possibly watching something in a pub with you over the summer with a pint of something cold.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Katy, and just excellent, amazing work from you and the team at KAM. It's so great to have all of the research and insights on a weekly basis. It's so helpful for us, and I'm sure all of your operators as well.
Thank you so much. Very, very kind of you.